Well, Trump was right. His meeting with President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy on February 28 really did make good television. It also was one of the worst showings in terms of diplomacy in recent memory, from both sides. In short, what should have been an exploratory diplomatic visit of Zelenskyy to the White House for the rare earth minerals deal descended into a train wreck where the President and the Vice President of the United States berated the Ukrainian President for not being thankful, accused him of gambling with the World War III, and of being disrespectful towards the sacred Oval Office. All of that in response to Zelenskyy disagreeing with some of the points that Vance made about engaging in diplomacy with Putin. There is, of course, much to say here about how the US side handled this, but that deserves a separate video. In this one, I want to focus on Zelenskyy and the mistakes that he made before and during this meeting. This is not about emotions or who is morally right or wrong. Let's put that aside for a minute and look at this with a cool head. Now, there are many things to admire about Zelenskyy. It's hard to deny his personal courage. Also, in 3 years of the war, he showed exceptional resilience, leading his country in one of the biggest and most devastating wars of the 21st century. And he appeared to be quite shrewd and resourceful when it came to rallying support from allies in the US and Europe. That support is what allowed Ukraine to repel Russian aggression for as long as it has. However, his argument with Trump and JD Vance clearly demonstrated the limitations of Zelenskyy as a negotiator and a diplomat. His first mistake is that he rushed into the White House totally unprepared. The way this normally goes is that all of the groundwork is done before the visit. The sides would agree on talking points and probably the outcome of the meeting before the guest's plane even lands. Then you just shake hands on camera, vaguely answer a few general questions from the press, go into the meeting, come out to sign the agreement in front of the cameras, shake hands again, have a nice dinner, and adjourn. Zelenskyy clearly came to Washington before the minerals deal was fully agreed in principle, knowing that Trump's stance on security guarantees was still very far from his own. It should have been obvious to him that it is too early to visit Washington. Not until the background work has brought the two positions closer together. Yet he did visit nonetheless. But that wasn't his only mistake. His second one is that he clearly hasn't realized yet that the game has changed along with the rules and the players involved, and with it, the leverage that Ukraine and therefore Zelenskyy possessed. His previous successes in securing support for Ukraine rode on universal support from both the leaders and the populaces of NATO and the EU countries. He was welcomed with standing ovations by welcoming crowds, hailed as hero, as he delivered poignant speeches about protecting democratic values. That even gave him the power to criticize his NATO allies when money or weapons weren't coming fast enough, which was also short-sighted, by the way. It made him look entitled and, in part, also led to the smackdown on February 28. In any case, that old world no longer exists. It started falling apart as wariness settled in the West over the war in Ukraine as time went on. Many voters in Europe and the US who had many other contentious issues to worry about, like energy prices, immigration, and own political storms, were no longer keen to foot the bill for the war in some other country. And the old order completely collapsed as soon as Donald Trump stamped into the Oval Office as the President of the United States for the second time. The moral leverage that Ukraine had turned into smoke. Trump and his supporters have a very different view on what the right thing is. They have different goals and tactics on how to pursue those goals. Agree or disagree with them, the fact remains. Trump himself is also a man with established sympathies which clearly align better with Putin and his autocratic view of democracy. And it's not like Trump has been hiding that. He said it openly multiple times and in language that left no space for doubt. Trump calls Zelenskyy a dictator while cozying up to Putin at the same time, and proposed a minerals deal that clearly was not balanced for Ukraine's interests. Still, Zelenskyy went into that meeting as if he would in the old world, without any leverage apart from the minerals deal that again was not properly organized in the background. That is why he went into the meeting with the attitude that led to his third mistake. He did not handle Trump properly. Trump's approach to diplomacy is that of a gangster. He's Don Trump. What you are supposed to do, especially if you're not in his good graces, is to show maximum respect, politely and publicly kiss the ring, smile, stay silent when provoked on cameras, and then, behind closed doors, appeal to the man's limitless ego. Is it a tough pill to swallow for a wary wartime leader, considering all the circumstances? Yes. Is it fair? No. However, that's diplomacy for you. Also, Zelensky keeps making the same mistake of trying to hold important negotiations in English when he's clearly not fluent in it. Yes, his English has improved, but not to the point where he could hold his own against an aggressive populist like Trump, or someone like JD Vance, because like the man or not, but he is quite eloquent when he's delivering his message. So, not being able to properly articulate your thoughts when facing these two is a very bad strategy. So he should have used a translator. Also, when a translator is involved, it inevitably leads to extra pauses, which can naturally cool off the exchange and can help to prevent the two-on-one shouting ambushes. So yes, if Zelensky wanted to secure his flank with the US, he, a wartime leader, should have swallowed his pride and allowed Trump and Vance to say things that may be hurtful and may be untrue while the cameras were rolling. He could have then apologized behind closed doors and signed the deal. Or better yet, he could have not come at all, because in a way the time worked for him. Trump is pushing to make the minerals deal and ceasefire happen quickly to prove that he's the great peacemaker and the great deal maker that his supporters expect him to be. Preferably, he wants it within the first 100 days in the office. That is leverage, or quoting Trump cards, that Zelensky gave up when he came to Washington early. All of these were serious mistakes for a world leader, which led to Zelensky crashing and burning during this White House meeting. So, as a diplomat, the president of Ukraine failed here, and so did his advisors, who should have prepared him better. Now, does this excuse the way President and the Vice President of the United States behaved themselves? Is it good diplomacy to ambush your guest in front of the media and behave like angry teenagers? Is Trump really a great negotiator and a deal-maker who will have a positive long-term influence on the US and the world? Well, those are the interesting questions to ask yourselves. Also, it's a topic for another video. In the meantime, I would love to hear what you think about this particular topic in the comments below. And if you found this content useful or thought-provoking, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more. And thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next one.